Hello, we are in one of the most exciting things of the year, which is books that come out in 2023, most anticipated releases. So I am trying not to flood myself with lots of releases. I chose just the ones that I'm like super excited for. So here we go, and I will give you small descriptions of them as we go, and let me know if you are excited to read any of these books, or if you have other books that you want to read in this year that you recommend to me. So the first book on here is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is coming out on January 5th, which is super close, and I am super excited. I already have a pre-order at my library, and I cannot wait. This is kind of setting as a fourth book, but technically in a new series in the Folk of the Air, the Cruel Prince series, and it is following a different generation in the same world, and I won't give anything others because it's spoilers, but if you like that world or you like very well done fae books, I would really recommend it. And then we have Lost in a Moment and Found by McGuire. On January 10th, this book is coming out. This is, I think, the 8th or 9th book in the Wayward Children series. I really love the series. It's one of my favorites of all time. I haven't actually read Drowned Girl yet because I got distracted in the year, but it's like such a great series and one of my favorites. And this one takes place in a shop where lost things go. And then also on January 10th, we have Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. And this is supernatural horror set in northern Alberta and is in dealing with Indigenous characters and is Canadian, and I'm super excited to read it. And then on January 17th, we have Mysteries of Thorn Manor, and this is by Margaret Robertson. This is a novella taking place in the Sorcery of Thorns series, which is a book that I really love. It also deals with fae characters and just a very fascinating world, and I don't want to say that many things as spoilers, but like we have talking books. It's really delightful. It's one of those books that just makes me smile and like really happy with such affection. And then in February, I don't actually have a publication date, but it is the second book of poetry by Ruth Marie Paterson is coming out, and this is Sharp Edges. I talked about my love of Gently Planted in many videos, as well as interviewing the author in November. In the first one, she kind of talked about being gently planted and also having the confusion and the refinding herself as an adult and stuff, and this is The Sharper Edges. And she read me a beautiful poem by T.S. Eliot that says like, in everything that matters there are sharp edges or something. It was more beautiful when she read it. That is what the inspiration of this collection of poetry is from. And then on Valentine's Day, we are getting Roshani Chokshi's new book, The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. I am so psyched for this. I love her as an author. I really enjoy her work and her style and her humor and all of that, and this is gothic mirror story taking inspiration from Rebecca and other gothic tropes, and I'm just really excited for this. And then on January 28th, we have a bind-up of 2 novellas in The Last Violent Call by Chloe Gong. This takes place during the events of Foul Lady Fortune and deals with some of the characters from the earlier books. And I really love her books as a whole. I really like the first duology, and I especially like the new book that we just had. So I'm super excited for this. And then on March 2nd, we have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by S.A. Chakraborty, and this is a lighter than her other books, and it is heist and pirates taking inspiration from like Ocean's 11 and Sinbad, and I'm super excited. She's the author of the David Fad trilogy, City of Brass, and one of my favorite series of all time. Most of the things you will realize that I'm mostly talking about authors I have already loved or books that I'm really excited for. And yeah, I will pick up other books and things, but I find that in other years when I put a lot of books that I don't know authors of, I just never get to them. So these are books that like are authors that I will want to pick up because I really enjoy their work. And then on March 28th, we have Above Ground by Clint Smith, and he is an author I also really love. He hosted Black American History on Crash Horse, and he has wrote the nonfiction book How the Word is Passed and the poetry book Counting Descent, all of which I have read and really enjoyed. So this is a book about fatherhood and personal lineages and historical institutions. Like, he looks at a lot of the ways in which personal identity interacts with like the aftermaths of slavery and segregations, and the ways in which they still oppress people, and the ways in which you find identity in them. And he wrote this beautiful thing, which was how to hold gratitude and despair in the same hands. And like, I think that just shows that he's a poet, and I really enjoy listening to him and his discussions. So I'm really excited for poetry. I really like Counting Descent, but like, I feel like he's going to be even a more matured and nuanced author today. And then also on March 28th, we have Hello Beautiful by Ann Napatello. And this is the same author as Dear Edward, another favorite book of mine. I thought that Dear Edward had one of the best explorations of PTSD from like trauma as a child, and the ways in which trauma affects you and rewrites the way that you look at history. It deals with a plane crash, and it deals with a 12-year-old boy who's the only survivor and how he grows up and the stories that he has, but it also looks at all the passengers and how they have these like, they only have like 3 or 4 hours to live, and they have all of these like completed things, wishes that will never happen, stories that they're things and anxious. And I think it does such a great job of making these stories seem really important, even though we all know that they're going to die. And then Edward's story and how he's Eddie beforehand, but he'll never be Eddie again. Like, the way that it deals with trauma is so well done, and I cannot wait to read another book by her. She's a fairly well-seasoned author, and I could go back and read her other books, and I probably will one day. And then on March 30th, we have The Secrets of Heartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden, and she is a booktuber who is the owner of the channel Books and Things, and one of my favorite people to watch. I really, really enjoy her content. And this follows a widow who becomes a governess, and it has all the tropes of like gothic and Brontes and feminism, and I'm super really excited for it. Like, I don't know exactly what the description is. I have read it, but I'm like, I don't care. I love like the fact that she's a widow makes me super excited. Like, we never have older women and like widowed, and I feel like it's gonna be really great. And like gothic and feminism, it's gonna make me so happy. And I've heard the ways in which she talks about books, so I'm very confident that I will like her books, hopefully. And then on May 2nd, we have The Sun and the Star by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro, and this is a Nico story. It is also dealing with another character that I won't spoil in case you are not caught up with the Percy Jackson series. It is a dual perspective on him and his boyfriend as they do whatever. I haven't actually caught up on all the Percy Jackson books, so I actually have to read the Hidden Oracle series. I read all of the others, but I've not read the last 4 books in that series. So I do need to read that, but I love Nico. Nico was my childhood crush. I had such a big crush on him that I was really deeply upset when I found out he was gay. I just wanted my goth boyfriend, okay? But I still hold such an affection for Nico. Like, it's out of this world. Like, I just get blushy and happy and like also just like my darling boy whenever I talk about Nico. So I also relate to him a lot. Like, I was also a goth kid who often felt out of space and dealt with all of these things, and I really, really like him as a character, so I'm really excited to read this, and I hope that it's really well done. Another book that I like don't think can get any higher on my anticipation is Yellowface by R.F. Guan. I was already super excited for this book because I've just had like such an affection for R.F. Guan before even reading any of her books. I was like, she is so cool. This is so cool. I haven't read her books. And then I read Babel, and I was blown away. Her writing was so good. I can't wait to read The Poppy War because I think it's going to be, you know, just as good. But Yellowface is a contemporary book. It is about this woman who is definitely Asian. Her and her rival they went through university, they went through master's programs, and they were supposed to be twin stars going up through the atmosphere. The one colleague who was Asian ended up becoming a superstar, and the white woman did not. When she accidentally sees her rival die, she decides it's an absolutely brilliant idea to take her rival's manuscript and create an Asian pen name and put it out into the world. And I'm super excited. Like, I think Babel deals with race and deals with the discussion and all of those things so interesting, and I think that this is going to be really great. It also compares to White Ivy, which was one of my favorite books of 2021. Such an underrated book. I really, really enjoy it. So I just have an affection for that book. I need to reread it. I've decided that affection is the word that I want to use. You know, whenever I'm doing videos, sometimes I'll just start using a word. I'll say it over and over again. It is true, though. I have such an affection for it. And I really enjoy this genre. Like, I think like literary fiction, contemporary fiction kind of is the stuff that I gear toward. Historical fiction, kind of like literary fiction, historical fiction, contemporary that like is dealing with these themes and stuff is the books that I love the most. So I'm super excited to see R.F. Guan in here. And then on June 6th, we have The Wind Knows My Name by Isabel Allende. I really, really like her as an author. Violetta is my favorite book of 2022, so I'm super excited. She's also going to be 81 this year, and she's just still putting out books every year. Like, so cool, so cool. So the description I have for this powerful and moving novel weaves together the past and present, tracing the ripple effects of the war and immigration on one child in Europe in 1938 and another in the United States in 2019. So I think it's going to be brilliant. I'm really, really excited. And then a book that I assume is published in June or July, but I do not have a publication date on it, but The Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse, book 3 in Black Sun. I really love Black Sun. It was one of my favorite books. I read Fevered Star and I did not particularly like it. I thought it was like a weird prologue to this book because nothing happened. Like, literally things began to happen and it just ended. And I was like, okay, this kind of felt like, you know, the awkward first like 4 chapters of a book where you're like, okay, can the action start? And it was just an entire book. So I'm really hoping that Mirrored Heavens will redeem it and like make me understand why everything in book 2 happened, because I want to love the series. I still really, really liked the writing. The plot just drove me crazy, and the character development and like the things that I cared about intensely, just characters on opposite continents, and I was like, but I care about their relationships and their interactions. And I also just in general do not like characters in isolation. Like, I really like characters that are, you know, with people that they have strong connections with. So like any story that is more isolated and like a character on themselves is almost always going to make me like the book less. July 25th, we have Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. We have multiple books coming by Chloe Gong next year, and I'm so psyched. This is a retelling of Antony and Cleopatra. She just keeps on coming with the Shakespeare retellings, and I'm also really hoping that Foul Lady Fortune book 2 comes out. But you know, if we're only having 2 instead of 3 going on next year, I guess I can deal with that. And then talking about books I've been waiting a little bit too full on for, we have August 29th with Heavenly Tyrant by Ziran J. Zhao. I read Iron Widow and really, really loved it. I read Zachary Ying and absolutely loved it. I am pretty much determined that Ziran J. Zhao is one of my favorite authors, so I am just really, really excited to read book 2. I might just read book 1 again. Like, I don't know. It just makes me really happy. Their writing and humor and everything is so perfect. I want to say it's because they're Canadian and literally the same age as me that, you know, we share the same soul. There's probably some parasocialness going on there. Going back in time to August 1st, we have Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is her first adult work as well, and I'm so excited. This is an intergenerational story between family and stories, and I forget the exact description, but it is following a group of people through their family lore, and I love intergenerational stories more than anything. I love Elizabeth Acevedo. She's one of my favorite authors of all time, and I'm getting so many books that I'm so excited for. Talking about a book that I'm incredibly excited about, but like I don't know how I feel about it, is Chalice of Gods by Rick Riordan, coming out on September 26th. So this is the 6th book in the Percy Jackson series. Percy Jackson is the series. Like, it's what got me into reading when I was a child, and I read so many of them, and then I read The Heroes of Olympus as they came out, and I don't know how I feel about it because it's not coming place in present day. It takes place after Heroes of Olympus, which is interesting. And yeah, I'm very interested. It's also quite short. I looked at the page length. It also made me concerned that it's actually more like a novella. I don't know how I feel about this. Like, that finale to book 5 is so brilliant. And like, I don't know if I want to see, like, I'm glad to have more Percy Jackson series, but I actually kind of would have rathered like a university story or something. This is actually his senior year, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like I want to read my Nico story first and then see how I feel. And hopefully in September we'll have book 2 of Foul Lady Fortune, but it might be prolonged to 2023. She can only write so much. And then we also have this book, which have been prolonged, but I think that it's really important to allow authors to take as much time as they need to read, because some authors, you know, like Jessica Townsend came out with several books in a row, and then, you know, there's only so much you can do. And I'm really, really glad that we're getting book 4. And this is Silverborn, the Mystery of Morgan Crow. I really love Morgan Crow. I remember sitting like on the floor reading Holopox and just being like mesmerized by it and so happy and kind of haunted. And I was like, so I really, really like this. This takes place in a magic school. Morgan Crow is a person with magic, and she lives in a magical world where there's, you know, people do things. If you're looking for a replacement series for The Name That Shall Not Be Named, I think this is a perfect book. It is a magic school book with like a hotel that changes shape based on what you do, and like fantastic characters that are diverse and come from a lot of variety, and just really, really great characters, really, really great themes, and lovely mysteries. And then apparently on my list I had One Maybe, which is Hungry Ghost by Victoria Yang, coming out on April 25th. It is a graphic novel about eating disorder and grief. And that is a book I may want to pick up as well, but may not as well. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed me and my passion about these books, and let me know if you're excited about any of these books, if you're surprised, if you want to pick any of them up now, and what your thoughts are. And I would love to hear some of your recommendations for the books you're most excited for, and I will see you in 2023. It's actually probably 2023 already.